poor bride marries a disabled millionaire, but his gesture shocks everyone. As the church bells pealed, their resonant tones clashed with the tempest brewing inside Seraphina Soren. The altered wedding dress she wore felt less like elegant fabric and more like a patchwork costume draped over her insecurities, a mask crafted for a world awash in silk and sparkling diamonds. She caught a glimpse of herself in the ornate mirror of the bridal suite, a reflection marred by anxiety. Her dark brown hair, elegantly swept back, framed a face marked with worry lines and eyes that flickered with an unsettling blend of fear and a fragile glimmer of hope. Outside the sanctuary, hushed whispers floated like rustling autumn leaves. They swirled around her, words of conspiracy, indignation, and intrigue, talking of the audacity of her choice. A girl from humble beginnings, barely scraping by, poised to marry none other than Jasper Sterling, the enigmatic millionaire confined to a wheelchair after a tragic accident had stolen not just his mobility but much of his former life as a celebrated adventurer. This wedding was more than a union, it was a spectacle, the kind that drew the voyeuristic attention of Sterling Falls elite. They had gathered not to celebrate love, but to watch her rise in status, to witness what they deemed a calculated transaction. Their gazes weighed heavy on her, slicing through the air with unspoken judgments, prying into her heart, questioning her intentions and worthiness. Yet amidst the sea of judgment and speculation, a single thought surged defiantly within her. Could this marriage, born of necessity, desperation, and perhaps a glimmer of loyalty, blossom into something real? Could she carve a slice of happiness with a man she barely knew, a man whose life had been irrevocably transformed by the cruel hand of fate? As the music swelled, a hauntingly beautiful melody filling the air, Seraphina drew a deep, trembling breath. This was her moment. There was no retreating now. With tentative steps, she started her descent down the aisle, each stride forward into the unknown heavy with both anticipation and dread. She was stepping toward a future cloaked in uncertainty and toward a man whose immense gesture bore the potential to silence the whispers that echoed in judgment throughout the pews. What secrets lay behind Jasper's steely gaze, and what was the true cost of this gilded cage they were about to inhabit together? The answers loomed on the horizon, just out of reach, waiting for their stories to unfold. Seraphina Soren's life had been anything but a fairy tale. Raised in the forgotten corner of Sterling Falls, she knew to struggle as intimately as she knew her name. Her mother, a seamstress with nimble fingers and a weary heart, had instilled in her a strong work ethic and an unwavering sense of responsibility. But even her mother's tireless efforts couldn't shield Seraphina from the harsh realities of poverty. They lived in a small, dilapidated cottage on the outskirts of town, a constant reminder of their precarious existence. Seraphina worked tirelessly at the local diner, balancing trays and enduring the snide remarks of privileged patrons just to make ends meet. Her dreams of attending art school, of escaping the drudgery of her daily life, seemed to fade with each passing day. Jasper Sterling, on the other hand, had once lived a life of boundless adventure. He was the heir to the Sterling fortune, a fearless explorer who had traveled the world, scaling mountains and diving into the deepest oceans. His name was synonymous with courage and daring. But a climbing accident in the Hems had changed everything. He lost his sight and the use of his legs, leaving him in a prisoner's mansion, surrounded by the trappings of wealth but devoid of purpose. His once vibrant spirit had dimmed, replaced by a quiet resignation. He became a recluse, shunning social gatherings and pushing away those who tried to offer him solace. His only companion was his stern but loyal housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, who had been with the Sterling family for decades. She witnessed his transformation with a heavy heart, longing for the days when his laughter echoed through the halls. Seraphina and Jasper's paths would never have crossed if not for a twist of fate. Jasper, seeking a caretaker who could also read to him, posted an ad. Seraphina, desperate for a better-paying job to support her ailing mother, applied. Their initial meetings were awkward, filled with hesitant conversation and unspoken anxieties. But over time, a fragile bond began to form between them, a connection built on shared loneliness and a mutual understanding of life's hardships. Could this unexpected arrangement offer them both a chance at something more, or was it merely a temporary respite for individual struggles? The diner job wasn't enough. Seraphina's mother's health was failing, and the medical bills were piling up. Eviction notices threatened to strip them of their meager home. Desperation gnawed at Seraphina, pushing her to the brink. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Seraphina returned home to find her mother weaker than ever. The doctor's grim prognosis hung heavy in the air. Seraphina felt a wave of helplessness wash over her. She needed money, and she needed it fast. The next morning, Jasper summoned her to his study. He sat in his wheelchair, his sightless eyes fixed on a point in the distance, his voice unusually somber. "Seraphina," he began, "I know about your situation. Mrs. Gable told me." Seraphina's heart sank. She hadn't wanted him to know the extent of her troubles. Pride had kept her silent. I can pay you more," Jasper continued, "but it wouldn't be enough, would it?" Seraphina shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. Jasper paused, then took a deep breath. "There is another way," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "A proposition, perhaps, unconventional." Seraphina looked at him, her mind racing. What could he possibly be suggesting? "Marry me, Seraphina," he said, the words hanging in the air like a fragile promise. "I can provide for your mother, ensure she gets the best care. In return, you would simply be my wife. A companion. A partner." Seraphina was stunned. Marriage? To Jasper? It was absurd, unthinkable. But as she looked into his blind eyes, she saw a flicker of something more than just desperation. She saw loneliness, vulnerability, and a desperate longing for connection. "Think about it, Seraphina," Jasper said, breaking the silence. "I understand if you need time. But please, consider my offer." That night, Seraphina barely slept. The weight of her decision pressed down on her. Was she willing to sacrifice her happiness and own dreams for the sake of her mother? Was this an act of love or a desperate bargain with the devil? And what did Jasper truly want from her? Was it simply companionship or something more sinister? The clock was ticking, and Seraphina knew she had to make a choice that would change her life forever. Seraphina wrestled with Jasper's proposal. The thought of marrying him, a man she barely knew, filled her with anxiety. Yet, the image of her mother's suffering haunted her. She confided in her best friend, Sarah, who worked alongside her at the diner. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, urged her to consider it. "Seraphina, think about your mom," Sarah said, wiping down the counter. "This could save her. You can't let pride stand in the way." After days of agonizing deliberation, Seraphina made her decision. She returned to Jasper's mansion, her heart pounding in her chest. "I'll do it," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll marry you." Jasper's face softened, a rare smile gracing his lips. "Thank you, Seraphina," he said. "You won't regret this." The wedding was arranged quickly, a small, private affair to appease Jasper's wealthy relatives. Seraphina felt like an imposter in the opulent setting, surrounded by judgmental eyes. She tried to ignore the whispers and focus on her mother, who sat in the front row, her face etched with a mixture of gratitude and concern. Life as Jasper's wife was a strange mix of privilege and isolation. She had access to the mansion's luxurious amenities, but she also felt like a prisoner in its gilded cage. Jasper was a demanding but surprisingly kind man. He appreciated her reading to him, sharing stories of his travels, and simply being present. However, their relationship remained informal, distant. There was a wall between them, built of unspoken anxieties and unresolved feelings. Seraphina struggled to reconcile the image of the adventurous Jasper with the disabled man she now knew. She also grappled with her feelings of guilt and uncertainty. Was she using him? Was he using her? One day, while exploring the mansion's library, Seraphina stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, she found a collection of Jasper's journals, detailing his past adventures and his innermost thoughts. As she read through them, she began to understand the depth of his pain, his sense of loss, and his desperate longing for connection. She also discovered a secret, a hidden investment Jasper had made years ago, specifically earmarked for charitable causes in Sterling Falls. It was a side of him he had never revealed, a testament to his generosity and compassion. Meanwhile, Jasper's estranged brother, Richard, returned to Sterling Falls. Richard had always been jealous of Jasper's wealth and success, and he saw Seraphina's marriage as an opportunity to seize control of the Sterling fortune. He began to subtly undermine Seraphina, spreading rumors and attempting to turn Jasper against her. Richard's machinations created tension and distrust within the mansion. Seraphina felt isolated and vulnerable, unsure of who to trust. She realized that her marriage to Jasper had made her a target, and she had to fight to protect herself and her newfound family. She ordered to truly make this marriage work. She needed to confront the secrets of the past and face the challenges of the present. She began to question everything she thought she knew about Jasper and his world, setting in motion a series of events that would lead to a shocking revelation. What was Richard's true motive, and how far was he willing to go to get what he wanted? And could Seraphina and Jasper overcome the obstacles in their path and find genuine love amidst the deception and intrigue? Richard's attempts to poison Jasper's mind finally bore fruit. He manipulated a conversation, leading Jasper to believe Seraphina was only after his money, echoing the whispers that had haunted her from the start. Jasper, already vulnerable and insecure, confronted Seraphina. "Is it true?" he demanded, his voice cold and distant. "Are you just here for the money?" Seraphina was heartbroken. "No, Jasper," she pleaded. "That's not true. I care about you." "Then why did you marry me?" he challenged. "Be honest, Seraphina. Tell me the truth." Seraphina hesitated. She couldn't deny that her initial motivation had been her mother's health. But over time, her feelings for Jasper had grown. She had come to respect his intelligence, admire his resilience, and even love him. "I married you to save my mother," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But it's not just that anymore, Jasper. I care about you. I truly do." Jasper remained unmoved. "Lies," he spat. "All lies." Richard seized the opportunity. "See, Jasper," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "I told you she was a gold digger." Jasper, blinded by anger and doubt, ordered Seraphina to leave the mansion. Devastated and betrayed, Seraphina packed her bags and walked out, leaving behind the life she had built and the man she had come to care for. As she stood outside the gates, she saw Mrs. Gable hurrying towards her. The housekeeper's face was etched with concern. "Seraphina, you must listen to me," Mrs. Gable said urgently. "Richard is planning something. He's been siphoning money from Jasper's accounts. He wants to declare him incompetent and take control of the Sterling fortune." Seraphina was shocked. "But why?" she asked. "He's always been jealous of Jasper," Mrs. Gable explained. "He wants everything Jasper has." Seraphina realized she had to do something. She couldn't let Richard destroy Jasper's life. Despite the pain and betrayal, she knew she had to fight for him. She raced back into the mansion, determined to expose Richard and save Jasper from his clutches. But was she too late? Had Richard already succeeded in his plan? And could she convince Jasper of her innocence before it was too late? Seraphina burst into Jasper's study, finding him alone in his wheelchair, looking lost and vulnerable. Richard was nowhere to be seen. "Jasper, you have to listen to me," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "Richard is stealing from you. He's planning to take over your fortune." Jasper remained skeptical. "Why should I believe you?" he asked, his voice cold. "You're just trying to manipulate me." "I can prove it," Seraphina said, pulling out the journal she had found in the hidden room. "I know about the charitable investment you made. Richard doesn't care about any of that. He only cares about the money." Seraphina read aloud excerpts from Jasper's journals, revealing his compassion, his generosity, and his deep-seated desire to help others. As she spoke, Jasper's expression began to soften. He recognized his wound reflected his values. Just then, Mrs. Gable entered the study, carrying a stack of documents. "I've found proof of Richard's embezzlement," she said, handing the documents to Jasper. "He's been transferring funds to offshore accounts for months." Jasper's face turned pale. He finally understood the truth. He had been blind not only in sight but also in judgment. He had allowed Richard to manipulate him, to turn him against the one person who genuinely cared for him. Richard suddenly appeared, his face flushed with anger. "What's going on here?" he demanded. "I know everything, Richard," Jasper said, his voice filled with newfound strength. "Your scheme has failed." Richard lunged at Jasper, attempting to silence him. But Seraphina stepped in front, protecting Jasper from harm. A struggle ensued, during which Richard accidentally knocked over a lamp, setting the curtains ablaze. The room quickly filled with smoke and flames. Seraphina and Jasper were trapped. "Get out, Seraphina!" Jasper shouted. "Save yourself!" "I'm not leaving you," Seraphina said, determined to stay by his side. Together, they managed to navigate through the burning room, reaching the safety of the hallway. Mrs. Gable had already called the fire department, and firefighters soon arrived to extinguish the blaze. Richard was arrested and charged with embezzlement and arson. Jasper was safe but shaken. In the aftermath of the fire, Jasper realized the depth of Seraphina's love and loyalty. He had misjudged her, doubted her motives, and pushed her away. But she had risked her life to save him, proving her devotion beyond any doubt. He apologized to Seraphina, begging for her forgiveness. "I was wrong about you," he said, his voice filled with remorse. "You're the most selfless, courageous woman I know. Please, give me another chance." Seraphina smiled, her heart overflowing with love. "I already have," she said. Jasper used his wealth to establish a foundation in Seraphina's mother's name, providing health care and support to those in need in Sterling Falls. He also began to take a more active role in his charitable endeavors, finding purpose and fulfillment in helping others. Seraphina and Jasper renewed their vows in a small, intimate ceremony, surrounded by their closest friends and family. This time, the vows were spoken from the heart, filled with love, trust, and a shared commitment to a future together. Their marriage, once born of necessity, had blossomed into something real, something beautiful. They had overcome their struggles, faced their demons, and found love in the most unexpected of places. Jasper's gesture, the one that shocked everyone, wasn't just the proposal itself. It was his willingness to open his heart, to trust Seraphina, and to embrace a love that defied expectations. It was a testament to the power of compassion, resilience, and the transformative power of love. And so, the poor bride and the disabled millionaire defied the odds, silencing the whispers and proving that true love can conquer all, even in the most gilded of cages.